Animals might view humans as the devil, according to a famous passage by Aldous Huxley. The comparison seems appropriate, even though at first glance this might seem extreme, given the typical conditions that farmed animals are subjected to on factory farms. The most exploited and mistreated animals in the world are those that are raised in farms, and there are billions upon billions of them. The agricultural industries prepare to bring even more animals into the fold, reducing their lifespans and subjecting them to endless manipulation for human desire as the world, and particularly wealthy nations, like the United States, continue to pursue a ravenous desire for animal products, saying that farm animals these days experience a form of earthly hell isn't really exaggerating much. With that said, let us dig deeper into the topic of animals raised in factory farming. And also be sure to leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. An individual who is compelled to live on both large and small farms because they are entangled in the agricultural system is referred to as a farmed animal. Since farm animals imply that some species of animals typically chosen for farming are biologically suited for human consumption, the terms farmed animal and farm animal can be distinguished from one another. But there are only animals that are farmed. There is no such thing as a farm animal. From birth to death, a farm animal's life is marked by human dominance and control. To produce offspring for the sole purpose of exploitation and consumption, female farm animals are artificially suckled with sperm obtained from fathers without their consent. The farming sector views domesticated animals as livestock, allowing them to be viewed as resources rather than the thinking, feeling beings that they actually are. By aligning with their legal status as property, this abstraction lessens moral concern for farmed animals. Factory farming is the main reason for animal cruelty on a global scale. The environment, our wildlife, and human health are all negatively impacted by this system. You might assume that all animals have idyllic lives, spending their days in fields in the sunshine, surrounded by grass and space, if you see a TV commercial for meat products. Packaging continues to spread this myth by featuring images of animals looking content and healthy while residing on a farm and soaking up the sun. It is impossible for anything to be more false. There are a very small number of free-range and organic animals that live in this manner. Today, factory farms are where the majority of the meat, poultry, and fish you eat is produced. This method of farming is used for raising fish, pigs, cows, chickens, rabbits, and ducks. Approximately 2 out of every 3 farmed animals are kept in factory farms each year. Typically, a factory farm is a large shed filled with animals that have no space to move or walk around. Steroid injections are given to the animals to allow them to grow twice as quickly as they otherwise would. Antibiotics are also abundant in the animals due to the extremely unhygienic conditions that allow diseases to spread quickly. As a result, they frequently receive antibiotic injections rather than bettering their living conditions. For the majority of their lives, billions of animals have been experiencing daily suffering. Living in this manner are the 4 billion laying hens, 1 billion rabbits, 40 billion meat chickens, and 150 million ducks worldwide each year. Intense factory farm systems raise 700 million pigs annually throughout the world. With little to no access to pasture for their entire adult lives, 23 million dairy cows are housed in zero grazing sheds. These intensively farmed dairy cows are treated like milking machines after being selectively bred to produce 5 times as much milk as is typical. They are sentient beings, not robots. They are unable to simply amble through a field and eat grass. Their daily lives are a living hell. They are unable to access sunlight, clean air, healthy food, or physical activity. Numerous animals are confined in such small spaces that their legs have stopped functioning. Their legs would have grown too feeble to hold them up if they had the space to stand up. Because they are limited to circular motion, some chickens develop a larger body on one side. Animals should be outdoors in the open air and fed wholesome food because they are sentient beings. So, what can we do? All we have to do to put an end to these atrocities is to stop consuming any meat or other products made in such a way. Reduce your meat consumption to reduce the amount of meat produced, and instead increase your intake of vegetables, which are already healthier for us. If you do consume meat, try to purchase it if it came from a system of farming that prioritized animal welfare. If it feels right to you, you could even become vegetarian. Also heavily farmed is fish. The vast majority are grown in enormous floating nets, though some are grown in land-based concrete tanks. Fish farms that are overcrowded are rife with infectious diseases. The waste from the floating nets sink to the ocean floor, reducing oxygen levels and posing a serious threat to ecosystems in the area. To try and stop diseases from spreading, pesticides and antibiotics are added to their food. Every year, between 15 and 20 million farmed salmon are produced. 26.7% of these perish from disease. In the end, parasites and pathogens do spread to healthy wild fish populations because many fish escape and breed with wild fish, which causes diseases to spread among them. The fish are also slaughtered cruelly. Sea bass and sea bream are thrown into huge buckets of ice slurry while they are still struggling for air, and many of them are packed as they struggle to breathe. After having their throats cut, trout are abandoned to flail in bloody water. How much meat and fish do we really need? And are we willing to eat fish and animals that have been mistreated so horribly? Are meat and fish really that important to us that we don't care how we get them as long as they are inexpensive and accessible? People would doubtfully consider consuming meat and fish if they were aware of where it came from and the extent of the animal's suffering prior to slaughter. Their lives have been miserable, and their deaths will be miserable. We eat the meat and fish, so they are laced with antibiotics, pesticides, and steroids, as a result of which our own health is negatively impacted. This is not the only concern. There is also the issue of the animals and fish. By consuming food that has a higher standard of welfare, such as free-range or organic products, you can improve the daily lives of farmed animals and fish. To food producers who engage in inhumane farming methods, you can make a statement. And let the food manufacturers know how you feel about their food offerings to cast your vote for what you want. If we stop supporting their system and start considering alternatives, things will only change. Whenever possible, make moral and ethical purchases if you can afford to. Try to put an immediate end to this cruelty.